So it's time to try to actually make this thing remote, and I thought I would start with the Bluetooth controller, something like this one right here. And they're real simple. The hookup is pretty straightforward. Let's see if I get this to focus. We just have a receive, the RxD, transmit, a ground, and a VCC. So we just have 4 wires we have to deal with. And the way this thing is configured right now, we don't really have access to the onboard serial ports, so we're going to have to do something called software serial. We're going to use software to build the timers to be able to receive the signals. And we'll give it a little test. That's actually what we're going to do right now, is give it a test to see if we can get communication. And I'm going to use an Android device to start with. You can use a Mac device, or you can use a PC, anything with a Bluetooth controller. There's lots of apps you can download, but I'll be demonstrating with one. The only other thing you may want is something like this. This is going to be able to hold the Bluetooth like so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now hook this up. We do have to keep an eye on which wire is which, because we're going to be using software serial. So I'm going to use the white wire here to designate my receive channel, and I'm going to hook that up on this board to A0. I'm just going to move this wire away to A0. Okay, so I'm going to use 0 and 1 as my 2 communication lines, receive and transmit, and then I'm going to use, of course, the voltage and the ground to power the device. Recall I have the black wire set up as ground, so I'm going to go ahead and plug that in now. I'm going to plug the black wire, and it can go into any of the center pins. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and hook up the red wire to the 5 volt supply, which is on the outer edge. If you're successful at this point, your Bluetooth device should start to flash. Okay, we get a little signal going on right there saying it's powered up. The next thing then, of course, is the receive and transmit. Like I said, I'm going to have the white wire in my case go to the receive. I'm going to hook that up to A0, the very first one. Okay, and then I'm going to hook the transmit to A1. So I don't know if we can zoom in on that a little bit so you can see what I've done. Okay, so my positive wire is hooked up to the 5 volt side on the outside. My black wire is hooked to ground, and then I have my transmit and my receive hooked up to these very first 2 pins here. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this like so. I'm going to find myself a 5/8 inch screw, and it should go all the way through, and then a nut. And I'm going to use that to kind of hold this thing in place like so, and this is going to slide up in here just like that. Okay, so it's hard for you to see it. Maybe I'll tilt it back. I'm going to prop this up with something here. I use some of my grading dice, in case you're wondering how us teachers decide your grades. These are my grading dice. Okay, so we'll be able to see it and make sure it communicates. So let me pause this, let me go get my Android, and I'll be right back. Okay, so, oops, darn it, I did not want to do that. Get this out of the way for the moment. Alright, so let's test things out. So you can see I have my Android up here. And the application that I like to use is this one down right here. Okay, and I think we'll get a screen description out of it here in just a moment. Maybe I can. So you can see the funky way it was spelled. And what you want to do is, there's lots of demos here. What we're going to do is we're going to load a demo piece of software just to make sure everything communicates. This one was pre-installed. This particular app here, you can create your own, and we're going to do that to control our robot, but this one was already built in and it has a serial window on it, so we're going to use that. But the first thing we have to do is connect to the device, and you'll see what ends up happening is if you don't have anything here yet, you may have to discover, and it'll go out searching for whatever Bluetooth device you have in proximity, in which case it's going to find this HC06. Okay. And what we want to do is we want to pair it. By the way, when I first turned this on, it did ask to turn on the Bluetooth. It was not by default on this $50 tablet. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to choose that device at HC06. It's already been paired, and I'm going to connect to it. And hopefully we'll get a nice connection with it. Sometimes I have to do this more than once as it tries to communicate with it. And we're still waiting. That's just unfortunate. Well, let's try it again, actually. Hold on. Make sure it was in connection, in range. Okay. Let me pause this for a second and I'll connect. For some reason I'm not connecting right off the bat, which is a little annoying. Give me a moment. Let me make sure it connects here. As usual, I just need to do it one more time and it was connected. Okay. So now it's connected. You'll notice the light is not flashing on and off repetitively. It just flashes off once, on and off once every few seconds. Okay. So I'm done with that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up this app and we're going to run it. And we have this little window here which is going to be able to communicate. And then what we want to do is we want to do a really basic test. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to go File, Examples, and I'm going to scroll down here to find Software Serial, because remember we're going to use the software serial because this board here consumes the ports. So we're just going to use a software serial example, and we need to make a few changes to it right off the bat. Recall that we had our receive and transmit hooked up to pins actually the receive was hooked up to A1 if I recall, and the transmit was hooked up to A0. Okay, so you want to change that. If you have yours hooked up to different pins, please make sure they're the right ones. I don't know why. We're going to take that. I'm going to go with the default of 9600. I prefer that. And here we're gonna, I like to keep everything at 9600. It just tends to work better if I just stick with a nice standard. And what should happen is as soon as it loads, it's going to go ahead and say good night moon, and we'll see that pop up right here if we've got good communication. So let's load this up. We've made those changes, and let's see what happens here. I'll get it up here so you can see it. And we have to open up the serial port. Oh, there it goes. It says, okay. So we've got Goodnight Moon appearing up here, and we've got the Hello World, and we can go ahead and see if it sends the communication, and sure enough, you can see both here and here that these devices are in fact communicating. So we've established communication, which is the first part of this process. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this video with that communication establishment, and we'll next start programming our robot. We'll build an application and we'll make it drive our robot around. So I will see you again shortly.